Very excited for this. It's time for Robotics Roundup, and we are talking with Tim Dunaj, who has, for many years, hosted the Robotics Roundtable. Very excited to be talking with you, Tim. I know this is a wonderful time. This is the thing you look forward to every year, I'm sure, as somebody that's been involved in this for quite some time. But this is sort of the kickoff of this segment on the show that we'll do for many weeks ahead to talk about robotics in our region. And Tim, you, I know, had the wonderful kickoff event just a few weeks ago. Talk a little bit about what we can expect and what happened over there at the kickoff event that we had.
All right, sounds good. First of all, thanks, Johnny, for having me, and thanks for the continued support from WSJM about for all of the area robotics teams. It means a ton for these kids to get this opportunity to share what they're working on and their experiences. And it's great you said we're kicking it off because that's really what we did January 6th is we had the kickoff event locally at Lake Michigan College. We had 18, 20 teams in there, almost 150 to 200 kids. And we did a couple of things before the global kickoff. The global kickoff was just that, a global kickoff at noon. A video was streamed from New Hampshire, and that introduced this year's game, the theme, what the students are working on. But leading up to that, we had about an hour and a half of just a local discussion, some breakout sessions, so teams could either talk with potential judges. They could, to see what goes on in the judging process. They met with robot inspectors to find out some of the technical things that they don't want to do wrong when they're planning for their robot this year. And then we had one breakout session was really cool. We had some students that have come through the program. Now they're alumni that are working for some of the local companies in town, Edgewater Automation, Eagle Technologies, TPC Technologies. So students got to talk to them, parents got to talk to them and say, what are some of the things we could do? And then we had a couple of people from Edgewater that talked about how they look for potential employees and interns coming out of this program. So there was a lot that happened before that real exciting thing that the students were there for, the kickoff. But I think that kind of ties into a little bit about what we do throughout the year is this experience is the beginning, like you and I have talked about, it's the beginning of a networking experience for students to start to realize they're making relationships with people that could be their eventual employer someplace down the road.
Absolutely. And I think that's why robotics, especially in Southwest Michigan, has continued to grow. And I think what was really cool at that kickoff meeting is to see, and I'm sure every year you love seeing new teams coming from different school districts. And why do you think that it's grown so much? I mean, obviously there's that potential of learning something that could be a skill that you could take on for a job. But why has robotics grown so much in Southwest Michigan?
We have to give some credit also to their first headquarters, but First in Michigan is an organization, and the growth model in First in Michigan is based upon, real quickly, it's a district model, which says we're going to have several small events that are going to take place at when I say small events, there's 40 teams at an event like we'll have, and we'll talk about a couple of those, but we will have in a 6-week span, 27 of those competitions that happen. So they're smaller. They could be at a St. Joseph High School, a Berrien Springs High School, Gull Lake, someplace up in Grand Valley. So they're very regional. So even if there is a school that wants to get to it, they don't have to travel to Grand Rapids or the Detroit metropolitan area to go to this event to see it and understand what it's about. They can make a small trip. And with that is the parents that get to go to it. So it makes it very, very regional, if you will, or smaller than regional. And I think that helps to grow because public awareness does that. So you will hear people, did you get to see that robotics event? And no, tell me a little bit more about it and the research. And then First in Michigan really has helped to promote. They've worked to get some government funding to kind of help start teams and to just kickstart things.
That's really awesome. Yeah. And if you've never been to one of those robotics competitions, they are absolutely amazing to see the robots and the cool stuff they're able to do. But just to see the kids being so excited, they're working together, they're problem solving, they're doing some really amazing stuff. it's almost bigger than a sporting event. It's really awesome to check this out. And so, Tim, what are teams working on like at this moment, leading up to these competitions, and then even in between as they continue to progress throughout the season?
Well, I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to go back. What you said, it's almost a sporting event. Part of the phrasing is it's the sporting event for the mind. It
Yeah,
really is. And the thing that I take away from those events, it's the most positive environment I can put myself in for a weekend. So that's just 100% what it is for me. What teams are working on now? So literally, Johnny, I mean, you saw it when we announced the game. Teams were picking up their kits, and then they were gone because they now have 6.5 weeks to really get going on the strategizing what's the best risk reward to do to tackle this game that we have coming up. And then how do you design a robot to do that? How do you build a robot to do that? What do you do for programming? And then they prototype and then they build it and then it fails and then they have to kind of rework it and go, okay, what do we need to do? So there's so much that's going on right now with just the robot design and build process. But then there's also pieces that I'm involved in as a judge or a judge advisor. We give out an additional 10 awards that have nothing to do with the robot. It's like, what's the sustainability of your team? What's the business plan for your team? How have you reached out into the community to make people aware, to make sponsors aware? How do you go get sponsors? So all these wheels, these different cogs are kind of going right now. And all of that is being worked on at this point in time. A lot of it is throughout the year, but the intense piece is like, okay, we're getting ready for our big competition and to be able to talk about all these things. So there's a lot of focus on so many things right now.
absolutely. And we'll look forward to talking to a lot of those teams in the near future on Robotics Roundup. But Tim, some dates that we need to mark on our calendars of some of those great competitions that are going to happen here very soon.
Yeah, so we have traditionally in the past the St. Joseph High School event has happened, and that is in week 2 of our season. This year, because of expansion and needing to have homes for all these competitions, Berrien Springs is actually going to host. Berrien Springs High School is hosting an event. It's a week 1 event, so that takes place on March 2nd and 3rd. Traditionally, our events, the competitions happen on a Friday, Saturday. This one, because of availability of the gym, it is a Saturday, Sunday event. So March 2nd and 3rd will be competition. Competitions are open to the public free of charge. We want people to come in and take a look and see the exciting things students are doing. And then we'll follow that up with the week 2 event, the St. Joseph High School event. Now that will take place traditionally. Competition happens on a Friday and Saturday. And so those are the big things. And there's a lot of the area teams that are involved. The Berrien Springs event is really being hosted by the Green Engineers out of Berrien Springs with help from some of the other teams. Megahertz out of Buchanan has jumped in and helped with that. And then the Average Joes are the host along with KitchenAid for the event that happens on the 8th and 9th at St. Joseph High School. Uh, and the goal for all of them is to make their way through. They compete in 2 events through the season, and they want to qualify for the First and Michigan State Championships, which will take place at Saginaw Valley State University, April 4th through the 6th. And that is the 40-team event that we have at St. Joseph High School or Berrien Springs. Take 4 fields and put them all inside the track and field venue at Saginaw Valley State. So you have 160 teams and 4 competitions that are happening all at the same time. And it is what we do on a weekend or in the regular season on steroids. And then to take it to the next level is the 17th through the 20th of April. Teams really want to qualify for Michigan State Championship and then go to the first championships in Houston, where there will be 8 fields of play, and the fields, the number of teams on a field goes from 40 to 67 teams roughly. So we'll have over 400 teams that'll be competing at the World Championship, April 17th through the 20th.
It's going to be an exciting time, and I know these kids are working hard, working together, and learning so much with this year's theme, which we mentioned is you mentioned crescendo, I think, in this conversation, which not only incorporates the STEM, but there's an A in there. They're putting the arts into it as well with music and stuff, which I thought was exciting and really cool to see.
Yeah, so and a lot of people have been looking forward to that, adding the arts into the theming, if you will. And the theming the first has done a great job. Back in the fall, we did our K through 3, and then our fourth and fifth grade kids and middle school kids. All of those were themed along the same things, building up to what we do now with Crescendo. And Crescendo, um, off. I think, I don't know if you recall when we were there, but I was kind of hoping they would do this. The teasers kind of told these kids there was going to be something about a stage and there was music and stuff. And they kicked it off with those of us who are Spinal Tap fans. It was, turn it up to 11. And and we've just found a whole new bunch of kids who are going to look up Spinal Tap to say, what's happening. So maybe we tie into that. I mean, Spinal Tap, in another month or so, they're coming out with Spinal Tap too. But it's so that theming in there, and it's based upon getting a robot to the stage and performing it. So they do a great job. And I will say this is a neat thing too. Back in 2020 and 2021, we had to transition to events not happening in person. So first created a program or gave students an opportunity, teams, to design a game. And I was a judge advisor for that. So I had a group of judges that had to judge kind of like a game concept. The game that we have this year is a mashup of two different games that were put forth by teams. And I think they're going to continue to try and pull those theming in to potentially help develop games down the road. Games are generally 2 years away. They're being developed. They're already working on the 2026 game. So it's kind of neat that these two high school teams were able to give input that they didn't know at the time, but has been chosen to be kind of part of the basis for this current game.
That's awesome. Really look forward to more conversations with those teams, those mentors, and all the great people that are working on robotics in our area in Southwest Michigan. But Tim, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing throughout the season as well. And thank you so much for telling me about some of the stuff that we have coming up here this season.
Happy to share some time with you. Look forward to talking to you throughout the season. As you know, all you have to do is say, Tim, do you want to talk a robot? And we're good.